Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Aura News broadcast. I'm Daniel Cook, your host, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. The Albanian MPs have adopted the decriminalization bylaws with 114 votes in favor, which the Democratic Party considers to be the end of a two-year battle. After many hours of negotiations and dispute, the majority and the opposition finally agreed on two issues that were holding up the process. They had difficulty agreeing on the process of verification for the self-declaration forms, but they agreed that the forms will be verified by both the prosecution and the responsible institutions. They also agreed that officials must self-declare any names they have previously used. The Democrat MP Oer Bulukbashi accused the majority of using every instrument at their disposal to block the decriminalization law. He said, "The completion of these bylaws concludes the two-year battle for decriminalization. We made this law because there are criminals in politics and in the public administration. If they had the political will, they could have achieved this already. There was no need for the process to come to this point. The law will function, and it will affect all those who hold constitutional positions, as well as the common employees. The self-declaration form is detailed and will not allow incriminated people to be parliament members. The backgrounds of the officials will be verified by the institutions and the prosecution," said Mr. Bulukbashi. On behalf of the Socialist Party, the chairman of the socialist group, Gramoz Ruci, gave his assurance that the majority has always been committed to this important process. He said that the majority has not hesitated at any time to create the decriminalization bylaws. Despite the progress today, the battle between the opposition and the majority will not end with the adoption of the bylaws. The opposition has demanded two more conditions before they will return to their parliamentary duties. The Democratic MP Edward Halimi said that despite the agreement, the majority has hampered the realization of three separate issues about which the parties agreed on December 24th of 2014. Mr. Halimi said, "The opposition demands the removal of the socialist MP Armando Plenga from the parliament. Also, the second condition of the agreement in December had to do with the execution of the Constitutional Court rulings. The parliament must not give shelter to MPs who have stolen from public funds. The third condition of the agreement in December was the normal functioning of the inquiry commissions, which are currently being hindered by the majority." On his part, Sali Berisha accused the Prime Minister, who was not present, of being the head of the organized crime in Parliament. He declared that the agenda of the opposition is to remove the thieves from Parliament. According to him, the refusal to take part in the Parliament is more than just a boycott. After the bylaws were adopted in Parliament today, the Assembly Speaker expressed his confidence that consensus on the justice reform is within reach. Mr. Mehta considered the unanimous vote in favor of the bylaws to be a good omen that the reform will be finished in the same spirit. He said, "It is important to understand that we have not adopted only a decision, but we have concluded a very important process with consensus. We showed the political will to set up standards for the representation of the Albanian people, not only in the Assembly, but also in the institutions. I believe that reaching consensus on the justice reform will be easier, considering the Venice recommendations and the commitment of all parties," said Mehta. The Assembly Speaker also responded to some questions from the media who wanted a comment on the statements of Sali Berisha that he may be resigning from Parliament. "I cannot imagine the Parliament without Mr. Berisha. He not only keeps the opposition alive, but he keeps us all united. I am convinced that he will continue to contribute and that his experience will help the new Democratic members," said Mehta. The EU representative Federica Mogherini was in Tirana for a few hours yesterday to address and encourage the Parliament in a special session. During her speech, Mogherini encouraged the politicians to work together, even though this may be a difficult task. She shared that her own country experienced a great deal of difficulty in holding constructive political dialogue and said that they have experience to share with Albania in this regard. She delivered the following message to the Albanian MPs. "I am aware that the country is suffering from a lack of deep political dialogue between the parties. I come from a country that has experience in this problem. I know that it is terribly difficult to achieve constructive dialogue. We suffered from the same thing for a long time in my country of Italy. Any political debate that takes place becomes oriented toward exchanging insults. But there are more important things at stake than the interests of the political parties, and those are the interests of the people, said Mogherini. Her message was one of constructive encouragement, but as soon as she left the parliament, the argument resumed between the Albanian politicians. The former Prime Minister Sali Berisha made the statement that Prime Minister Rama is intentionally blocking and destroying the law under the direction of the criminals. He said, using various clauses of the Code of Criminal Procedure, they are trying to save Rama's people at any cost. Edi Rama is blocking and destroying the decriminalization law. The parties argued from about 10 o'clock this morning, when the meeting of the Council of Mandates was supposed to be held, until about 2 p.m., when an agreement between the parties was finally reached. However, the enthusiasm over this agreement quickly disappeared as the opposition abandoned the session shortly after the adoption of the bylaws. It seems that Mogherini's encouragement to leave the past behind and to unite under the common cause of EU membership will remain an insurmountable obstacle. The head of the Union of Judges has supported the actions of the U.S. Embassy, which has announced that it will refuse visas to corrupt judges. Mr. Hoxha urged everyone who has information about corrupt judges or prosecutors to declare it to the appropriate authorities. He said, "We are in agreement with the Minister of Justice and the head of the Supreme Court. The list of corrupt judges should be made available to justice bodies so that legal procedures can be taken against them. Whoever has information should submit it to the justice bodies," said Mr. Hoxha. A few days ago, the U.S. Ambassador Donald Liu announced that the U.S. Embassy has a list of corrupt judges and that they will not issue travel visas to anyone whose name appears on that list. The Ministry of Justice and the Supreme Court have also expressed their support for this initiative, and the Minister of Justice, Ili Manjani, has requested a copy of the list so that he can begin procedures against the corrupted officials. Albania's ranking in the World Bank report Doing Business has obligated the government to undertake several initiatives to improve the business climate. By the end of April, the government will have made several legal changes to improve the climate for operating as a business in Albania. These changes were initiated after the country lost 35 positions in this year's World Bank report. At a meeting with business reps today, the new Minister of Economy, Milva Ekonomi, has said that the business climate in Albania must be made healthier. The Director for Enterprise within the Ministry of Economy gave a presentation today on several concrete initiatives that have to do with business practices, taking loans, and issuing construction permits. According to him, all of these things will be improved. The business reps who were present at the meeting shared their concerns about the business climate, especially the high taxes and the blocking of construction permits. The recent World Bank report noted that the business climate was being negatively affected by the lack of electricity supply, the difficulties in issuing building permits, and the higher taxes on companies. For this reason, Albania was ranked in the 97th place, 35 places lower than it was only 1 year ago. The International Monetary Fund is asking the government to bring back the small business tax and eliminate any of the exemptions that have been made so far. Now representatives of the business sector are saying that these exemptions have created space for evasion because they cannot be administered by the fiscal institutions. According to the director of Confindustria, the government's decision to remove the small business tax is in direct conflict with the formalization of the economy. The business reps support the reduction of mineral rights as a necessity to help the industry, which is being seriously damaged by falling prices in the international markets. The Ministry of Energy has formally requested the Ministry of Finance to reduce the mineral rights, arguing that it would save the industry and hundreds of employees. That's the end of our edition for this evening. Thanks for watching, and please join us again at 6 p.m. tomorrow for more news in English. Thanks. Have a great night.